call at 5 p.m. on a Friday. So I'm really glad to know that we are all clean energy champions on this call. Before we begin any further in the program today, I want to acknowledge that the state of Delaware rests upon the occupied land of the Lenni Lenape and Nanticoke people. Could we all just take a moment to reflect on the land that we live on? Thank you for that reflection, friends. Now, we have an incredible lineup today. We are going to hear from the entire congressional delegation of Delaware, Senator Chris Coons, Senator Tom Carper, and Congresswoman Lisa Blunt-Rochester. Before that, we will hear from each of the co-sponsors for tonight's event: the Sierra Club Delaware, Interfaith Power and Light Delaware, Citizens Climate Lobby Delaware, and Energize Delaware. We will also hear from University of Delaware professor Dr. Saleem Ali. Wow, that's a lot of incredible people in support of 100% clean energy and bold, equitable action on climate change. The truth is that Delaware is chock full of clean energy supporters. 67% of the people in Delaware, in fact, support transitioning to 100% clean electricity by 2035, which is President Biden's goal. That's 67%. That's 2/3 of the entire state that supports congressional action to clean our energy grid entirely in just 14 years. And where do things stand right now on Capitol Hill? The president's American Jobs Plan is being largely folded into a $3.5 trillion quote unquote budget reconciliation bill emerging in the Senate and the House right now. It would create millions of family-sustaining union jobs while building 500,000 electric vehicle charging stations, modernizing the electricity grid, creating a civilian climate corps, and much more, while mandating all the while that 40% of all climate investments and benefits accrue to disadvantaged communities. And of course, as a centerpiece, the president's plan would mandate 100% clean electricity by the year 2035, including 80% by 2030. And that is the reason we are all here tonight, to celebrate and support our champions for climate justice and clean energy. We have a packed schedule today, so without further ado, I want to introduce our first speaker, Sherri Evans-Stanton. Sherri is director of the Sierra Club Delaware chapter. She oversees strategies and policies related to conservation, protection of air quality and drinking water supplies, environmental justice, and clean, renewable energy. Sherri, take it away.
Thanks, Mike. The Sierra Club's top priorities in the American Jobs Plan are rooted in our core values of ensuring that we all have fresh air to breathe, safe homes, healthy communities, and clean, affordable transportation, energy, and water.
And you're going to want to make a left.
No matter our race, age, identity, or income. The AJP is an essential vehicle to achieve 100% clean energy by 2035. For decades, infrastructure in Delaware has suffered from a systemic lack of investment. In fact, Delaware received a D on its infrastructure report card. The AJP will make a significant investment in our nation's infrastructure, but is currently proposed it is grossly underfunded. Over the next 5 years, Delaware needs more than $750 million for water, wastewater, and stormwater upgrades and for removing toxic pollutants from waterways. It is appalling that 90% of our waterways are unsafe for drinking, fishing, or recreation. The AJP includes $111 billion to ensure clean, safe drinking water is a right, not a privilege. President Biden promised 100% replacement of lead pipes. $60 billion is needed, but the current version may provide less than 2%. Thousands of households in Delaware will continue to be poisoned by lead pipes. We need more funding now for clean water. The Sierra Club also strongly supports investing in public transit that runs on truly clean energy and policies to reach 100% pollution-free cars, trucks, and buses. Over 40% of our greenhouse gas pollution is from transportation. The AJP will modernize public transit with an $85 billion investment. Zero-emission school and transit buses are a compelling example of where we really need to increase funding levels currently being discussed. President Biden laid out a vision in his AJP that includes $20 billion to convert 20% of the fleet of school buses to electric, but the current package has been whittled down to a paltry $2.5 billion, which means 96% of school buses would keep spewing toxic air pollution instead of going electric. At the same time, there is an equal $2.5 billion for alternative fuel buses powered by fossil fuels and money for coal and gas-powered ferries. Let's be clear, these are polluting fossil fuels that the United States government should not subsidize. We need to eliminate fossil fuel subsidies, not increase them. Please restore full funding to all electric buses to stop exposing our kids to these toxins and to create good-paying U.S. jobs. It would be unconscionable for Congress to pass a major infrastructure deal that expects kids across the country, especially children from communities of color, to keep drinking lead-contaminated water and breathing diesel-tainted air when we can eliminate both. We're counting on you to fight for ambitious funding levels that support the Biden AJP vision. And most importantly, we can't let procedure interfere with progress. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sherri of the Delaware Sierra Club, for those remarks. As Sherri says, the need to act could not be more urgent. I think we have all been seeing the unprecedented flooding around the world that's taking place, the wildfires, et cetera. And we know that Delaware especially is the lowest lying state in the entire country. And without action to build seawalls and to protect our coastlines, sea level rise will cost Delaware more than $9 billion over the coming 19 years. Delaware needs 100% clean energy. The country needs 100% clean energy, and the world needs 100% clean energy. Our next speaker is an expert in our energy system and the effects it has on our environment. And so it is my pleasure to introduce Dr. Saleem Ali. He is the Blue and Gold Distinguished Professor of Energy and the Environment at the University of Delaware. He is also a member of the United Nations International Resource Panel. Dr. Ali.
Thank you so much, Mike. Climate change has presented us with a civilizational challenge, but also a generational opportunity to reinvent human endeavors. And the University of Delaware is well positioned to harness our state's core competencies in this regard. First, as a research-intensive university and one with a clear commitment to teaching, we are also a land grant, space grant, and sea grant institution. And our university leaders have leveraged these particular contingencies to consider what partnerships should be best suited for public and private sector engagement. And we're particularly interested in partnering with civil society groups such as the Chesapeake Coalition, the Sierra Club, and many of our students, of course, are very eager to partner in this regard. Environmental studies and environmental science have seen some of the most rapid growth among our majors. Recently, the university received almost $500,000 in grant funding from the Unidel Foundation to set up a climate science and policy hub. This hub is currently under development, and it will provide an additional opportunity to make sure that all of our efforts get the most efficient outcome. The Delaware Environment Institute, with its support from the National Science Foundation and other sources as well, continues to work admirably in this regard. We're also keen to link with some of the priority areas that President Biden has identified. Knowing that we have strength in energy and materials science, we established the Minerals, Materials, and Society program a couple of years ago. And that is very well suited to link up with the challenge of critical metals, particularly for meeting climate change mitigation targets. So the University of Delaware is well positioned. We feel we can be a real engine of growth for the state in creating green jobs and green growth. Thank you so much for this opportunity to share some thoughts. Over to you, Mike.
Thank you, Dr. Saleem Ali with the University of Delaware. It's just so powerful to hear directly from academia experts about the rapid changes we're seeing in the climate, but also the rapid change in our energy systems that we need to see materialized. And that's why it's really exciting to move to our next guest. We are going to hear from someone who's actually being the change we want to see in the world. The Delaware Sustainable Energy Utility, otherwise known as Energize Delaware, is doing the important work of creating the more efficient, cleaner world that we want to see. Suzanne Sebastian is the program manager for Energize Delaware and has more than 35 years experience in delivering energy efficiency and renewable energy programs in the state. Suzanne.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you, Mike. On behalf of Tony DePrima, who's our executive director here at Energize Delaware, I'm so excited to participate in this webinar and join our Delaware legislative delegation and the other group of prominent panelists that we have this afternoon. So as you've heard, that we're branded as Energize Delaware, and we're a one-stop resource for energy efficiency and renewable energy programs for all Delawareans. You know, we have programs for residential customers, for farms, for nonprofit organizations. We help houses of worship. We help schools and hospitals. And, you know, we have over 16 programs that help with installing energy efficiency and renewable energy systems across the state. We have low interest financing. We have incentives. We have loans. And we have a whole vast resource of programs that can help all Delawareans. Last year, one of our largest programs was our Home Performance with Energy Star program. We had over 2,000 participants in the program, and we actually received the National Energy Star Award for Sustained Excellence. And this is the 4th year in a row we've received this award. And we have over 80 contractors that participate in our program doing this important work for the residents in Delaware. They install energy efficient heating and cooling upgrades, as well as insulation, air sealing, and hot water systems. It starts with an energy assessment, and it goes through the whole house and makes sure that the homeowner understands how it operates as a system. We actually had our largest participation in the program last year, even during COVID. We were able to keep our contractors working and everybody doing the important work to save energy. We also have over $34 million in our low interest loan program that assists businesses and nonprofits, a lot of farms in Delaware to do solar PV. We are also have authorization to do bonding. And we are the program administrator for something known as PACE, Commercial PACE in Delaware. It's a property assessed clean energy program that allows energy financing through an assessment program that stays with the property to do energy efficiency and renewable energy projects. All 3 counties now participate in this important PACE financing, which brings more resources to the table to be able to do this important work. We can also be known as something like a green bank or a green financing organization. So we've done a lot of work in the program, but through that work, we've also heard from our contractors. They're finding that it's increasingly difficult to get their hands on the equipment that they need to install these energy efficiency upgrades. The lead time on the energy efficient equipment is getting longer, and it's delaying jobs and increasing costs. We've also heard from our contractor base that they need workers. They need skilled workers. They need workers that start at the entry level to go in and weatherize attics and basements and crawl spaces. And we've also heard that they need the trades jobs and folks that can do heating and cooling equipment and other things for the homeowners. So we need a skilled workforce as well as entry-level jobs. And so I think some of these Jobs Acts that are before Congress are going to be very important to help our program. We've also been following the Clean Energy Accelerator and the National Green Bank legislation. This will bring a lot of private capital to work to be done in Delaware across businesses and other nonprofit organizations. It'll increase jobs in Delaware, and it'll bring more opportunities to do energy efficiency and renewable energy work in our state. Through the work that we do, we're reducing energy use, we're saving customers money on their bills, and we're reducing the harmful impacts of carbon on our climate and our environment. We're excited to offer these programs and do the work that we do for all Delawareans. And we're looking forward to more opportunities to expand our efforts, broaden our reach, and work as this national legislation and funding comes to fruition that increases jobs, improves infrastructure, and reduces the harmful impacts of climate change. So to learn more, visit energizedelaware.org and participate in one of our programs. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Suzanne Sebastian with Energize Delaware. That was fantastic. I am so glad that you guys are so busy. That is a really good sign when you're trying to convert the world to clean energy. And thank you to all of our speakers so far. Next, we're going to hear from every member of Congress who represents Delaware. First, we will hear from Senator Carper, then Senator Coons, and finally, we will hear from Congresswoman Blunt-Rochester. Unfortunately, Senator Carper will not actually be able to join us live, but he did record a video of his remarks, which we will hear in a moment. Senator Carper is the chair of the critical Senate Committee on Environment and Public Works. Under Senator Carper's leadership, his committee has played a critical role in shaping climate and infrastructure policy on Capitol Hill.
Laura, we can't hear it. Maybe try re-sharing your screen and pressing optimize for video, including sound.
So hang on, everyone, while we work out these technical kinks.
Senator Tom Carper, and I'm delighted to join you today. Let me just start by saying just a big thank you all for the work that you're doing, fighting for solutions against the greatest challenge that we face on this planet of ours, and that is climate crisis. Long before representing Delaware in the United States Senate, I was a naval flight officer, and in the Navy we had a term that's fitting for a fight against climate change, and that term is all hands on deck. This is an all hands on deck moment if I've ever seen one. As many of you know, Delaware is the lowest lying state in the country and very vulnerable to the impacts of climate change. We know that sea level rise from climate change threatens our coastal towns and our pristine 5-star beaches here in Delaware. And one of my colleagues in the Senate from Louisiana was telling me the other day that they lose a piece of land in Louisiana the size of a football field every 100 minutes to the ocean, every 100 minutes. I talked to a colleague of mine this last week from Arizona. He was telling me that, I said, what's going on in Arizona, Mark? And he said, last week the temperature in Arizona was 115 degrees. He said, this week is 115 degrees. And he said, next week is 115 degrees. And a place is a tinderbox and it could go up and smoke any day. So this is a serious matter. This is an all hands on deck. Whether you happen to be from a red state or a blue state, a Gulf state or an interior state, this is a serious problem. And whether it be too hot or too cold, too much rain or too little rain, extreme weather fueled by climate change is already damaging. It's damaging our homes, our businesses, our roads, and farms that help feed our nation and their backbone of our state's economy. In Iowa last year, they had a storm in Iowa that, where the winds blew, hurricane force winds in Iowa that blew down a third of the state's crops. Just think of that, hurricane force winds in Iowa in the middle of the year that blew down the crops in a third of the state. But whether it's Iowa or Delaware, Louisiana or Arizona, this is serious stuff. And families in Texas are still reeling from the historic freeze that shut down their state earlier this year. Western states today are, as I said earlier, experiencing just record-breaking heat waves, and of course the problems that they're seeing in Louisiana for losing landmass are actually also seen by other states. This all hands on deck moment requires us to move past divisive rhetoric. It requires us to work together to find solutions. And I've always said that whether it's a pandemic or whether it's a 9/11 kind of attack on our country, whether it's climate change, these are challenges that ought to unite us, not divide us. And I think we're starting to find a way forward in that regard, and making some progress in our nation's capital in Washington, D.C. Fortunately, we now have a president in Joe Biden and a majority of members in the Congress, including myself and my Delaware colleagues, both Senator Chris Coons and Congresswoman Lisa Blunt-Rochester, who understand that we can't just talk about this. Can't wait any longer for action. We have to act. And our president, on his first day, Joe Biden's first day in office, he put the U.S. back in the Paris climate agreement. And soon after, President Biden told the world that he'd put this country on a path to reduce over half of our climate emissions by the end of this decade. Think about that. Over half of our climate emissions by the end of this decade. To meet the president's ambitious climate targets and help our world mitigate the worst of climate change, we need to find a way to implement the president's American Jobs Plan, which makes significant investments in sustainable infrastructure and a cleaner power sector. And the Environment and Public Works Committee, which I'm privileged to chair and to lead, along with a Republican from West Virginia, my native state, whose name is Shelley Capito, and we are privileged to lead our committee, and worked very well together on service transportation legislation that has the first climate title ever that we've done in the Senate, and a lot of other good items as well. But in our committee, we've already passed service transportation legislation advancing many of the climate goals in President Biden's American Jobs Plan. We did that by a unanimous vote, if you can believe that. Our bill includes an historic climate title win, over $18 billion in funds to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and make our roads more resilient to changing climate, and also invest in charging and refueling infrastructure for electric and hydrogen-powered fuel cell vehicles. In fact, I think that our friends at General Motors told us that they're going to, by 2035, they're going to build only electric-powered and hydrogen-powered cars and trucks. Transportation sector is the largest source of emissions in our economy at roughly 28%. So reducing emissions from our mobile sources, our cars, trucks, and vans, is a critical part of reaching our nation's climate goals. Second leading cause of emissions in the United States comes from the power sector, where we get our electricity. The president has set an ambitious but I think achievable target to reduce carbon emissions from the power sector by 100% by 2035. The president's a path to propose mandates to the power sector clean up. I am working with my colleagues in the Senate and Public Honor through my position on the Environment and Public Works Committee. This committee as well to help make these pieces of the American Jobs Plan a real my state, which offshore windmill farms create.
It looks like we're having some difficulty. Laura, should we just cut it off right there? Sorry about that, everyone. Senator Carper then went on to say that he was going to deliver a brand new Tesla to every resident of Delaware. That's what he was going to say at the end. Just kidding. He was really close to the end of his remarks, and I want to thank Senator Carper for making that recording. Obviously very dialed in, very focused on climate action. Now we're going to turn to our next senator who will speak. But first, I want to introduce Mr. Marty Hopkins, who will introduce our next speaker, Senator Coons. Marty is with Citizens Climate Lobby of Delaware, and he is the group's liaison to Senator Coons' office. Marty is a lifelong Delawarean and chemical engineer with a degree from the University of Delaware. He has volunteered with the Citizens Climate Lobby for the past 5 years. Marty?
Thank you, Mike. Good evening, everyone. Climate change is the most significant challenge of our time. It both threatens the environment and makes addressing every other critical social challenge that we face today exponentially more difficult. Senator Carper called this an all-hands-on-deck moment, and I think it's fair to say that addressing climate will require a sustained, multifaceted approach. I've spent the last 5 years volunteering for the Citizens Climate Lobby, advocating for one of those approaches, carbon fee and dividend. But I and CCL support any policy that will reduce carbon emissions and protect the most vulnerable half of our population. And I see carbon pricing and the 100% clean electricity standard as complementary strategies. I'm honored and grateful to have been invited to join with so many other climate advocates here today. Thank you all for being here and for the critically important, selfless work that you all continue to do. As part of my work with the Citizens Climate Lobby, I serve as CCL's liaison to the office of Delaware Senator Chris Coons. I've always said that working for CCL is easy when your senator is Chris Coons. In 2018, along with Senator Jeff Flake of Arizona, he introduced the bipartisan Energy Innovation and Carbon Dividend Act to put a price on carbon and return all of the money to American families in the form of monthly dividends. In 2019, he formed the bipartisan Senate Climate Solutions Caucus with Senator Mike Braun of Indiana. Several weeks ago, the Senate passed the Growing Climate Solutions Act to reward farmers for employing techniques which sequester carbon. That bill was co-sponsored not only by Senators Braun and Coons, not only by all 7 Democrats and Republicans of the Senate Climate Solutions Caucus, but by a total of 25 Democratic and 25 Republican senators. That's half of the US Senate working together today in a bipartisan fashion on climate. Much work remains to be done, but momentum is clearly shifting towards climate action. Thank you, Senator Coons. You are a big reason for that. I'd like to offer just one more thought before introducing Senator Coons. I feel that it's very important for me as a carbon pricing advocate to be here today discussing the clean energy standard. There is a danger when climate allies, including myself, get too attached to our own preferred approach. It's a luxury we can't afford because climate change doesn't care about who's right, and there are still too many others out there who would do nothing. I view carbon pricing and the electricity standard as complementary, a belt and suspenders. We need both a fire hose and a bucket of water to save our burning house. Actually, I should say that it's our children's house that's on fire. And if someday my grandkids have to ask why, God forbid, we didn't stop climate change, I think I really want to have a better answer than I wasn't flexible. We, as climate allies working together, can succeed by using every good climate tool that is available. I would suggest that our children deserve that. And as for working together, our next speaker is certainly someone who sets that standard. Please welcome Delaware Senator Chris Coons.
Thank you, Marty. Thank you so much for everything that you and all the great folks at Delaware Citizens Climate Lobby have been contributing to advocacy and engagement around climate issues here in Delaware, and for everything that the Citizens Climate Lobby has been doing nationally. It's been interesting to see real advertising on social media and traditional media, to see it beginning to have an impact on my colleagues, and to be a part of Congress at this historic moment when we've got bills beginning to be taken up and moving. You just referenced the Growing Climate Solutions bill that was broadly bipartisan. When I first got to the Senate 10 years ago, I don't think there were 3 members of the Republican caucus who would recognize that the climate is changing, that human activity is causing it, and that we must take action to address it. Today, we've got a robust group of bipartisan legislators in the House and Senate trying to work together to advance solutions to climate change. To the Chesapeake Climate Action Network, and Mike, thank you for what you're doing today. And to the Delaware chapter of the Sierra Club and your members, thank you so much for being a part of this, for helping organize this great event, and for your work to support Delaware and advance clean energy and clean water in our region. And thanks in particular for your work to help boost Delaware's renewable portfolio standard. I'm honored to be on today and to join my senior senator, Tom Carper, chairman of the Environment and Public Works Committee, someone who has dedicated so much of his elected life to fighting for clean air and to fighting to combat climate change, and to my friend and colleague, Congresswoman Lisa Blunt-Rochester, who's on an essential committee in the House for making progress on this key issue. Some of you know that I've been dedicating a lot of time in the last few weeks to trying to get a bipartisan infrastructure bill over the finish line in the Senate, something I suspect I'll be working on all weekend as much as I've been working on in the last couple of weeks. And there's a few reasons why I think this is an important priority for all of us, and particularly for those of us who are passionate about combating climate change. It will be the single largest investment in infrastructure in the history of our country. The $1.2 trillion over 8 years that this represents, and the $580 billion in new money, in money above the baseline that this represents in rail and in highways and tunnels and bridges, in broadband infrastructure, and in modernizing our ports and our airports, will have a dramatic impact on the competitiveness of our economy and the energy profile of our economy and our society going forward. It includes some critical climate initiatives, but we also have to remember the way that it aligns with and reinforces the much bolder, much broader proposal that's making its way through the Budget Committee and will soon come to the floor. That is a roughly $3.5 trillion provision that will likely be passed by reconciliation. Let me just take a second and explain how these two intersect, because I think we've often lost sight of that in recent debates on the floor and in commentary on cable news and social media. We cannot do authorizing on this reconciliation plan. So while we might be able to get past a huge proposal, this $3.5 trillion package that will make a real difference in education and housing, small business and healthcare, and in transportation climate initiatives, we have to authorize them through this bipartisan infrastructure bill. So for example, if we do not pass a transit chapter of the bipartisan bill, we don't have the authorizing language to go ahead and pass some bold climate provisions that relate to transit on the reconciliation bill. So too across so many other areas, whether it's the highway bill or it's some of the ways in which we're looking at promoting clean energy or helping our country with otherwise combating things like wildfires, floods, and other extreme events. Some of you know that one of the pieces of this bolder plan that I'm very excited about is the Civilian Climate Corps. It will literally receive tens of billions of dollars of investment in the reconciliation proposal. It will carry forward a key part of President Biden's American Families Plan. This is something I've long championed because it will both revive the CCC of the 1930s and make it more inclusive, more diverse, and more sustainable. And it will exclusively focus on climate, on resiliency, and on addressing some of the challenges facing the public lands, the coastlines, and the public spaces of our nation. So let me not go on too long, Mike. I just want to make sure that folks realize that I'm honored to be on with you and that I've got a whole range of proposals in this area, some of which have just been enacted, some of which I look forward to getting moving forward. And I appreciate the opportunity to be on with you today and to take some questions from folks who are participating.
Senator Coons, thank you so much. And we have gotten some questions from the audience. One of the questions that we have is, why do you think it is so important that the president included a standard of 100% clean electricity in the American Jobs Plan?
Well, I think, as you heard from Marty, that there are a number of different approaches to combating climate change that I think are complementary. A clean electricity standard is essential to reaching President Biden's bold and ambitious objective of a zero carbon electricity sector by 2035. It's also essential to meeting our Paris climate agreement commitments. And we can do that while also creating good middle class, high paying jobs because we'll be decarbonizing one of the most important sectors in our economy, base load generation and transmission. It's going to require a lot of the resources that are in the American Jobs Plan to accomplish this. And so a clean electricity standard will not just help with a new generation of power generation, but also its distribution. It'll help make our grid more resilient, and it'll help decarbonize our economy. But I think we need to marry it up with, I'm sorry, could you please take that? That's from the White House. I'm sorry. My apologies. My phone is buzzing like an angry insect. And I've got something I think I need to get on. I just want to briefly mention that I think it is complementary to put a price on carbon, to have a border carbon adjustment, and a clean electricity standard. All three of these can comfortably live together and reinforce each other. I'm excited that we have a pathway towards the clean electricity standard, and that it's such a central part of President Biden's American Jobs Plan.
And Senator Coons, I think we heard you say that that was a call from the White House. Is that?
It's from Steve Ricchetti, where we've got an issue we're trying to work through in the infrastructure bill.
Got it. Well, we're not going to keep you much longer. One question we had from our audience was also, what do you anticipate happening before the August recess, and what then will happen in September? Will this be wrapped up in September, or might this go into October?
So two-step process, the bipartisan infrastructure bill. I believe we will have final text and we'll be proceeding to a floor vote in the Senate later this coming week. We will pass it, and then we'll go to the House, and the House will have to pass it and send it on to the president before the Senate breaks for our August recess, if we get one. We will also take up and pass the budget resolution, which sets the framework for reconciliation. That is not the details of the reconciliation package. That would be worked out in September and likely October by the different committees of jurisdiction. $3.5 trillion is a massive plan, and the language of the text for each of the relevant committees is not yet written. What the Budget Committee is putting forward is a broad framework that sets priorities. How much would we be raising taxes? How much would we be cutting drug prices? And what would we be doing around climate? I just introduced on Monday bill text for a border carbon adjustment. That is a part of the reconciliation general framework that was passed by the Budget Committee. We'll see whether it survives the Senate floor later this month. One of the good news, bad news things about trying to pass that budget reconciliation package through the Senate is that it requires us to go through something called vote-a-rama, which is a literally unlimited number of amendments, which only ends through exhaustion. So at some point in the next couple of weeks, I believe you'll see us pass the infrastructure package and pass the budget framework. That is the beginning, not the end of the reconciliation package.
Well, last question. What are you most excited about in terms of what these components of the American Jobs Plan and the president's climate agenda will do for the state of Delaware? What are you most excited about, the kind of changes that may come to the state?
Well, first, the infrastructure plan is going to provide badly needed funding for us to modernize our infrastructure up and down the state. When I commute by rail, I go through and over bridges and tunnels that are over 100 years old. And all up and down the state of Delaware, we've got roads that are badly in need of modernizing and upgrading. When I drive from Kent or Sussex over the Bay Bridge, the congestion on our roads and the lack of affordable and quality transit options is another reminder of why we badly need this infrastructure investment. As I said earlier, Mike, one of the things I'm most excited about that'll be a part of the American Jobs Plan is the Civilian Climate Corps and the chance to dramatically expand national service, giving young Delawareans an earned pathway towards a college degree, a chance to serve together in a corps that brings us together from across our differences in terms of our regions, our counties, or our backgrounds. And then last, a new cadre of committed young Americans who are going to get to work and strengthening our coastlines and our wetlands and revitalizing the natural spaces in Delaware and across our country.
Great. That's fantastic. Listen, Senator, thank you so much for your time. I believe now it's your turn to introduce your member of Congress.
Well, thank you, Mike. It is a joy and a blessing to be able to introduce my friend and colleague, Lisa Blunt-Rochester. Lisa is someone who I've known for decades, but who I've gotten to know even better as we've served alongside each other in the current Congress. I'll confess that slogging through the last couple of years of the Trump administration was quite a challenge. And I needed the prayer warrior, the colleague, the spirited colleague who's helped make possible hope and optimism. Lisa, I don't know if you remember being in Cedar Rapids together, being in New Hampshire together, but we slogged through the snows of the Midwest and the Northeast, believing all the while that Joe Biden would be our next president, even when that wasn't really obvious to a lot of our colleagues in the Congress or to the general public of those two states. And with South Carolina and the rocket ride our president has taken past there, Congresswoman Blunt-Rochester, who served on the Vice Presidential Selection Committee and who was one of the campaign co-chairs nationally, has had a great opportunity to see her vision for Delaware and the country enacted in the House and to be an absolutely essential voice of support for the Biden administration going forward. So folks, my friend and colleague, Congresswoman Lisa Blunt-Rochester. Thank you, Lisa, for joining.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator. Thank you so much, Chris, my good friend. And it is truly an honor and a blessing and a privilege to serve with you and also our senior senator. And, you know, the challenge of being seniority order and also at the end as the member at the end, I go last. But I think what is important is that we've got a Senator Carper, who's the chairman of a committee that is making the major decisions about this and doing it in a way that is going to be strong and lasting. We have Senator Chris Coons, who is actually working day, night, weekend, sometimes around the globe, to really make sure that we get something that is substantial, that sticks. And then he also is an appropriator, so he's also got that connection to the dollars and to make sure that he delivers and that we deliver for Delaware, which I think is really, really important. And I appreciate your good friendship, and I thank you so much for the introduction. I really also want to especially thank all of you who are joining this evening, especially the Chesapeake Climate Action Network, Action Fund, and the Delaware chapter of the Sierra Club for organizing this. Mike at the top mentioned commitment and the fact that people are here on a Friday late afternoon, almost evening. I was thinking I drove from the state fair to make sure that I got here in time. And as I came up the state, I thought about the fact that we are urban, we are rural, we are suburban, and we are coastal. And that even being at the state fair and hearing about conservation and preservation and realizing that no matter what background you come from, these issues impact all of us. And I am so proud to spend this evening with you, just to spend a little bit of time talking about the House. Our senators are pivotal, but we have a couple things going on the other side of the Capitol as well. And some of you may know that I am privileged, as Chris said, to sit on the Energy and Commerce Committee, which is an exclusive committee in the House of Representatives, meaning you can only serve on that one if you get on it, and they don't accept freshmen. It is the committee that I wanted to get on because of these issues. Particularly, I'm on two of the subcommittees that deal specifically with us saving our planet. One is the Environment and Climate Change Subcommittee, and then the second is the Energy Subcommittee. And I can think of no more important time to serve on those two subcommittees. It encapsulates everything that we need to know about our efforts to get to net zero emissions and 100% clean electricity. I'm also proud to serve on a committee that has some strong leaders with some ambitious goals, because even before President Biden came in, our committee stood up and said that we had a commitment of getting to net zero from day one. And now we have somebody in the White House who actually gets it, who gets the work that all of you have been doing in the trenches, on the coast, all over our state and around the country. Our committee introduced a comprehensive bill to also deal with these big goals called the Clean Future Act. And I'm proud that my own bill, the Open Back Better Act, was included in that package. And it included the work and help of so many on this call. We have a ports bill, climate action for ports bill, that is also one of our bills. And again, because of work of folks like you on this Zoom, we really know that it's about increasing energy efficiency for our public buildings, our Open Back Better bill, and taking a chunk out of the carbon emissions we currently see and saving consumers money. That's why I love, hearing from organizations like Energize Delaware, because this is also about saving money. To me, I'm happy that we're now framing things in a new way. In the past, it's always been presented to us as this false choice or this phony narrative that we had to either choose jobs or climate. And I'm proud to say that the American people are coming to realize what so many of us on this webinar already have known for a long time, that it's not one or the other, it's both. It's jobs and climate, that we need both. And that's why President Biden's American Jobs Plan is so important. And that's what it's all about. It's about building a world-class infrastructure that relies on clean energy. And it's about using prevailing wage union individuals to build that future. And it's about ensuring that equity and environmental justice is at the center of all we do. That's why the president and his administration have just unveiled historic federal guidance to accompany their Justice 40 initiative. I was fortunate myself, as well as Don McKeechin and Annette Barragan, to be able to preview that. It's a whole of government approach that recognizes the historic shortcomings of the federal government, and it directs 40% of the Biden-Harris administration's climate and clean energy investments to environmental justice communities. It's about a fundamental recognition that what we face when it comes to climate change isn't just a challenge, it is indeed a crisis. And we in Delaware know that crisis all too well. As the lowest lying state in the nation, we're not dealing in hypotheticals. We are facing down the climate crisis now. But while it's a time of crisis, it's also a time of action and opportunity. It is truly the intersection of saving the planet, protecting our health, creating jobs, improving our quality of life, and ensuring equity. And I'm here to tell you that in the House, we are acting. Through the Select Committee on the Climate Crisis, led by my good friend and colleague, Kathy Castor, we have identified over 700 recommendations that need to be taken urgently. Over 250 of those recommendations have already passed the House, and over 100 have been signed into law. With President Biden and a Democratic Senate, we cannot and we must not wait. Sherri said it early on, but she said it a little differently than I say it. The way I say it is that we must not let process stop progress. I'm going to say that one more time. We can't let process stop progress because it is imperative. And when we pass the American Jobs Plan, we will continue our pursuit of a better and brighter future, a future with a 100% clean electricity economy and a future with clean energy jobs. I thank you for all of the work that each of you are doing to save us. And I am so proud to be on the front lines in this work, because we know that it is about our very existence, about the water that we drink, the air that we breathe. And I will close with this and say that this necklace I'm wearing, made by a woman right here in Delaware, is on my heart right now the heaviest. The right for us to vote and to save our democracy so that we can make sure that we pass bold, 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 progressive and strong climate action legislation, and that we are able to get the American Jobs Plan to President Biden's desk. Again, I thank you for all of your support of us, and we will continue to make sure that we build a better world. Thank you and good night.
Thank you so much, Congresswoman Lisa Blunt-Rochester. I think that if we could just tap your energy, we could probably light up half the East Coast for years to come. Thank you so much for that. And now I'm going to turn. We're getting to the final part of this webinar. I want to turn to my colleague Jamie DeMarco, who is the Federal Director of the Chesapeake Climate Action Network's outreach program to all things federal. Jamie?
Thanks so much. And I've been blown away by the speakers tonight. And those were some really powerful words, Congresswoman. And I really loved the messages we heard from both our senators as well as all the other speakers. I'm here to tell you what you can do to help get this policy over the finish line. You know, we're all very lucky here to have an incredible lineup of congressional champions for bold, equitable climate action. But you can always ask your friends, particularly friends in other states, if they would like to take action to help get these things across the finish line. And remember, even with champions, even our strongest supporters need our support, and they are not mind readers. So the only way they'll know what you want them to do is if you tell them. So we're asking you to call and email your members of Congress. And particularly if you'd be willing to send an email or a message or post on social media asking your friends to do that, maybe your friends in Pennsylvania, maybe your friends in Virginia. If you have any friends in West Virginia, definitely send this to them. But we need every member of Congress to be flooded with these messages. When the tough votes come, and trust me, the tough votes are coming, every member of Congress needs to walk onto the floor to take that tough vote, having just come from a meeting with their staff where the staff said, listen, the calls are ringing off the hook because everybody wants you to support strong, bold climate action. This is just a total tidal wave from your constituents. That's what it's going to take to get this over the finish line and get past dark money and dark influences. So please copy and paste those links. Callforclimate.com is the website where you could call. And I also post a link where you can email. Thank you so much. These next few months are going to be the most critical months on climate. There's never been a more important time to contact your senators and members of Congress. So please take action.
Thank you, Jamie. Yeah, it's easy to remember. Call the number 4climate.com. It's one of the most user-friendly systems I've ever seen for contacting Congress. Definitely check it out. Make a phone call, send an email, support your members of Congress, make sure they stay focused, share the information with your friends in other states. We got a lot to accomplish in the next 60 days and we need everyone's help. And finally, to take us out, I want to turn to Shweta Arya with Delaware Interfaith Power and Light, who will close us out with a prayer. Shweta has been working as an environmental activist since 2012, as an environmental educator, and she turned her love for nature into climate activism after receiving a training at Al Gore's Climate Reality Project in 2018. Shweta.
Thank you so much. And Jamie, that call to action is always a good thing. It's really important. We want to get energized, but we also want to act. Good evening, everyone. It's a great honor to have this platform to speak today. And, you know, it was so great listening to all our speakers, including our senators and congresswomen. And we're just so fortunate here in Delaware to have our senators and congresswomen really on board with the climate agenda. My name is Shweta Arya, and I'm the Executive Director of Delaware Interfaith Power and Light. And we are a faith-based environmental nonprofit. We are one of the 40 state affiliates of National IPL. And our shared mission is to mobilize our faith communities, our faith leaders, our community stakeholders to take a bold action on the climate crisis. We really believe it is our moral obligation and our sacred duty to act together to protect our Mother Earth and all its creation. I know it has been said several times, but Delaware is the lowest lying state. You know, by the end of the century, 8 to 11% of our state could be underwater. I mean, that's huge. So we are not really looking into the climate impacts that is far away from us. It's happening right here in Delaware. And through this infrastructure plan, we have the opportunity to do things right away, right now, to really avoid the suffering and pain, mostly to our most vulnerable population. Right. So I want to share that, as I said, National IPL has made American Jobs Plan a top priority. Just last week, we gathered signatures from 3,400 faith leaders from around the country to sign the letter in support of American Jobs Plan. This infrastructure bill is really important to us because we know to really tackle the climate crisis, we really need investment in our infrastructure. And we love that the current administration has made this priority to really invest with justice and creation in mind. Through this infrastructure bill, we can invest in clean energy tax credits for wind, solar, and electric vehicles. We can invest in removing every single lead pipe in the country. We can commit, as President Biden has promised, that 40% of all spending will go to the communities most impacted by climate change and pollution. So we really want to build back better. We really want to build back black. I love that term, but this time we really need to do things right. We really want to lift our communities, which were left behind last time, right? So we want to take care of our communities of color, our marginalized communities, and build back better, right? So we can invest in a civilian climate corps, creating jobs that make our communities safer. And we can show our morals and our courage by creating a national clean energy standard that supports truly renewable energy and puts us on a track for 100% clean electricity by 2035. We are currently working with a great coalition, RPS coalition here, trying to bring back, trying to get offshore wind investment here in Delaware. So we are working with our Delaware communities. It's just, we want to let our congresswomen and our senators know that Delaware faith communities, Delaware communities, Delaware community stakeholders are behind them, right? So we want to support this infrastructure bill. So please call or email and show your support to the senators, to other friends that, Jamie said, contact your friends and family in other states. This is this is a really important bill that can really help us tackle the climate crisis. And now I would like to end this wonderful webinar with a short Hindu prayer. It is a very ancient mantra and very important mantra in our religion. It's called Gayatri mantra. And one of the few mantras I actually know in Sanskrit. So I'm going to say that. And we usually say that when we really want to, put all the positive energy and ask our supreme power, whoever we pray to really put our mind towards doing the right thing and, take us away from darkness and put us towards light. Om Bhur Bhuva Swaha Tat Savitur Varenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Diyo Yona Prachodaya. Om. Thank you.
Mike, we can't hear you, so you know.
Great. Of course, I wait till the very end to forget to unmute myself. Thank you, Shweta. Thank you to the senators, the Congresswoman, and all the advocacy groups who came together on a Friday night for a great cause. Have a great weekend, but don't forget, we have a lot of work to do. call the number 4climate.com, call4climate.com, share that link far and wide, make a phone call, do everything you can, make this part of your life. We're going to have, this is the best opportunity we're going to have probably in our lifetime to fight climate change, is to get this legislation through Congress in the next 60 days or so. So thanks again to everyone. Have a great weekend. Congrats on all the work you've done. Thank you for all the work you're about to do, and we'll see you down the road. Bye-bye.